Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. I'm very happy to be joined by Matt Baxendell. Buckeyes number 2 in the initial college football playoff rankings of 2022, my friend. Your thoughts? I wasn't sure if that'd be 2 or 3. It had to be one of the two, and they are number 2. Your thoughts?
I'm surprised Tennessee is number 1. It's amazing how much currency you get for beating Alabama. I mean, they had a Big 12 circa 2004 game against Bama, who, doesn't look like the Bama of old, to say the least. And I guess, I don't know, if Ohio State had beaten Penn State by an extra touchdown, would they have been 1? I think this is the biggest surprise of all this to me, I think, is that Michigan isn't in the top 4. I was really surprised about that. But for Ohio State, the only thing that really matters out of all this is that we're number 2 and we went out, we're in. We knew that anyways. It's all semantics at that point to me.
So you touched on this. So Tennessee number 1, Michigan is 5th, Alabama is 6th. So you go Tennessee 1, Ohio State 2. You go Georgia 3. Who am I leaving out here?
Clemson
4, and then Michigan 5. So any surprises there?
Well, Clemson, they suck. But, I mean, not to be glib about it, right? But Michigan's only 5th because the first month of their schedule was a complete farce. That's the only reason they're there. I think Clemson, if you watch them play, they are not on par with Michigan. Michigan would absolutely bludgeon them into submission. So I think that this is a byproduct of just simply strength of schedule. I think the bottom line is they looked at both of them and they said, okay, we got 2 undefeated teams here. One has a better strength of schedule than the other. And I think the other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave, I'm always a conspiracy theorist when it comes to this playoff committee, right? I think they looked at it and said, if we start with 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams, it's going to look bad. And then when those teams lose, they're going to say, well, I lost to a top 4 team. Why should I get dropped out? So I think they're trying to say, yes, we want another team outside of the 2 big leagues in the top group, since they have a viable team in Clemson that not that long ago was in a championship game. It seems like the easy political decision. It makes it easier to move these guys around when somebody may or may not win or lose, because Tennessee plays Georgia this week and Ohio State plays Michigan in a couple weeks. So I don't think they want to back themselves into a corner where they're like, what happens if Georgia beats Tennessee and Tennessee drops only to 4th and Clemson doesn't get in? What happens if Michigan is at number 1 and Ohio State's at number 2, right? They're trying to set it up so that these matchups don't just result in 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams, even though that might be the best matchup based on actual talent. That's my conspiracy theory, Dave. I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, that's how I see it.
As you were saying that, it feels like there might be something to that. I don't know if they got that deep with it. I really think Michigan's non-conference schedule is the biggest factor here. It literally, we could say it was bad. It was the worst non-conference schedule in college football this year, Bax. Number 1.
Last place.
Out of 131. Right. 131 teams in college football. Michigan had the 131st hardest schedule, so the first easiest schedule in all of college football.
In the non-conference portion, yep.
And, and a lot of those wins that they end up looking good at, the final score. I mean, Indiana, they beat them 31-10, but it was tied 10-all at halftime. They were tied against Indiana at halftime. I mean, there's been other games where they've been shaky. Maryland, if that ball doesn't bounce off that dude's face mask.
Maryland should have beat them. Maryland was the better team that day. The one game all year I've been impressed with Michigan was the Penn State game, just to be honest. Yeah. They beat Penn State up a little bit better than Ohio State did. And even though they were tied at halftime in that game, that was an utter fluke. Michigan had kicked the butts of Penn State up and down the field in the first half. That's the only game all year I've looked at Michigan on. Wow, okay, maybe we have something here. Rest of them, horrible non-conference schedule, mediocre performance against bad Big Ten teams.
All right, you mentioned it. So Tennessee at Georgia on Saturday. Who you got?
Well, this seems like it's UT's year, doesn't it? You can do so much analysis.
Seems like that's Ohio State's year, doesn't it? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it certainly does feel like it's Ohio State's year. But you can do so much analysis in college football. At the end of the day, it's an emotional sport played by young people, right? How many times has Tennessee beat Georgia in the last 15 years? You can count it on 2 fingers. It's not many. And this just feels like the year where UT has the quarterback, right? Look at the NFL, the teams that have the quarterbacks are the ones that are the better teams, right? UT has Hendon Hooker, and he's the best quarterback in the SEC this year. So Georgia's lost an entire NFL roster since last year's team. they've scuttled through a number of wins this year. I mean, they couldn't pull away from Kent State, for heaven's sake. I think Tennessee's going to win this game. Like, I really do. And I'm picking them. I'm picking the Vols. I lived in Atlanta for 5 years. I know many dog fans. I'm picking UT. And I know damn well how much of a joke UT has been for so long because I know a lot of Vol fans. So the reality is this is the equivalent of saying, like, this is the year that Penn State's going to beat Ohio State, right? It happens about once every half decade, right? It's the same for Tennessee over Georgia based on the last 15 years worth of stuff. Long gone are the days of Phil Fulmar's national championship runs with Peyton Manning and T. Martin. I'm picking Tennessee. They're the better offense this year, and Georgia's defense isn't last year's defense, and their offense still kind of is meh. Georgia might have more overall talent. They'll have more guys that play in the NFL when you look at these rosters in 5 years, but I think Tennessee's the better team right now. So I'm picking the Vols. What about you, Dave? Who are you picking?
I'm picking Georgia, but I hope you're right.
Boo!
I think Georgia will win, but I will be rooting for Tennessee. All right, let's get to some Ohio State football topics. We'll start with some recruiting. Kayden McDonald is a Buckeye. We found this out.
State of Georgia
2 nights ago. Speaking of the state, exactly. Speaking of the state of Georgia, North Gwinnett. Love it, love it, love it. Swanee, Georgia keeps like producing. Started with Cameron Hayward and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. That area of Georgia just keeps producing for Ohio State and many others, but I love that Ohio State taps into that area. But I love this. This is the one tech that we've been waiting for. I feel like even though he's a 4-star, that he's like, in my opinion, like a little underrated. You look at like his offer list. I love Kayden McDonald playing against top competition, already 6'3", 320, 315, whatever, as a high school senior. I love it, Bax. They have the number 4 recruiting class in the country, the Buckeyes do. They have 21 commits now. Kayden McDonald is a Buckeye. I love it.
See this? See this? This is how I feel about this. This is my favorite recruit in this class. This is what I wanted. I wanted those big Southern D tackles, right? The one thing you can't coach against in college football is the interior of your line getting its face smashed in. We just got a guy who can do that. I absolutely love this. I want 2 more of this guy, but they're like freaking unicorns. You can't find them, right? So Ohio State just caught a unicorn here. And let me tell you what, that unicorn, it has special magical properties. I am the most excited I've been about an Ohio State recruit in a couple years. This is the guy I wanted. Remember we were talking over the summer where the question was, what's wrong with Ohio State's recruiting defensively? Like Brian Hartline's pulling like 5-star receivers like it's video games, right? And then we're like, all right, we got 1 D lineman and Will Smith Jr. What's going on here? Now we got this guy. This is exactly what Bax in August wanted. This is exactly it. I am so happy that we got this guy because this is
Jason
what we need.
Jason Moore to go with Will Smith. I'm so far it went from like, oh man, this D line class is looking like a wreck to like, I'm not too shabby. Now we'll never see anything like the 2000. Hopefully we do see something like
so don't talk too soon.
The 2021 Ohio State defensive line class might go down as the best that we've seen. Not at Ohio State, period, for defensive linemen. You're talking about JT Tuimoloau coming off the best game that I've ever seen from an Ohio State defensive player. You're talking about
any defensive player in college football.
Junior. Yeah, I agree with you. And then Jack Sawyer is almost like the
he's the afterthought right now. Yeah,
that's how good that foursome is.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable how good that foursome is. All right,
I'd argue none of them have the same skill set though. Not even Tyleek that McDonald does though. It's really hard to teach beef. You know what I mean? And this guy has big Hank written all over him, and I am just giddy about it. This is my favorite recruit in this class. I don't care who else we get. This is the guy I'm the most excited about.
All right, let's get to some other stuff here. All right, so Ryan Day is, trying not to say too much about injuries. We'll get to JSN in a minute. Let's start with Miyan Williams. I asked him about Miyan Williams yesterday. And after saying he's not going to comment about injuries, he at least said the good news is it's not serious. That tells me now we've heard from like people that are in the know that's like, oh, it's not. It doesn't sound like it's a broken wrist, which is how I feared it was.
Yeah, it was the wrong way.
A dislocated finger, maybe a broken finger. Hey, somebody we know named Ezekiel Elliott played the entire 2014 season with the broken bone in his hand. And I think Zeke played pretty well in the 2014 season. Listen, there's a long list of running backs that have to play with like a club on or like, big wrap. So it was great to hear that Miyan Williams, from Ryan Day's perspective, it's not serious. But Bax, when I put that on Twitter, did you see a lot of people were like thrilled, most like so 90%. And then there's the 10% that are like, I don't believe it. He's bullshitting. Like, I can't believe anything he says about injuries now after blah, blah, blah. It's like, listen, first of all, if you're a football coach, you need to have some, some sportsman, some gamesmanship is the word I'm looking for. You're not going to tell your opponents everything. So, like, but I felt like he was being sincere about Miyan. Like, if this was like a season-ending thing, I think he would have said something. For him to say so blatantly, it's not serious. That was great news yesterday.
Yeah, it's got a Belichickian vibe anytime he talks about injuries, right? Except unlike Bill Belichick, he's not required by NFL rules to actually like give a percentage on whether or not he's going to play, right? Like that's the thing that I think people are differentiating between the two. But there's a very lack of desire to talk about it from Ryan Day. And he's upfront about it. He's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But I will say this. I agree with you. If it was something we didn't think he'd play, I don't think, let's face it. Like if he doesn't play the next 3 weeks, Michigan's going to know it was serious, right? Like the reality is if it's not serious, it was a dislocated finger, if it was a backwards wrist, whatever it was there, that as long as nothing was broken, right? Then that's enormous. It's absolutely enormous for Ohio State because of our two tailbacks. He's the one that has a little more grit to him right now. I will say that I think some of the running game struggles we had in the first half against Penn State might have been a little less obvious with Miyan Williams running people over. That touchdown run was one of the biggest man ball runs you'll ever see. It was like the 5-yard line, and he carried like 3 defensive linemen with him. Incredible run. Just
even the officials were like surprised because they didn't call it a touchdown on the field. I'm like, that's a touchdown. And
they were like, there's no way that actually was in, right? No. And then we all watched it and we're like, by the way, is that the first time we've ever seen a play overturned by referee view camera? Because it was obvious from like the camera on the ref's hat that he was in the end zone. I love that.
And they had to piece it together. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can tell you right now, if that's not a serious injury, that's enormous for Ohio State because Trevion, as talented as he is, picks up knocks a little easier, sometimes gets a little happy feet in the hole, and you can see what he can do. He's a home run hitter, right? But Miyan Williams he's a heart and soul kind of guy, and he runs mad. Is he our angriest runner since Mo Clarett? Because I kind of feel that way about him. Can you think of somebody since Mo Clarett that's ran that angrily every time he gets the ball, Dave?
I think that's a good, like every time. Like, there was times Beanie Wells would run super angry. You're like, yes, sir.
Well, if Beanie ran angry every play with his physical gifts, he would have killed people.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Like when you're talking about somebody just consistent. I mean, Zeke ran angry. I'd get Zeke, and Zeke blocked angry.
Boom Herron ran pretty angry too.
Zeke ran. I mean, Dobbins, but Zeke. I'll give it to Zeke in 2014, and even in 2015. Like you look at that Michigan game. And they had every reason after losing to Michigan State to kind of like not pack it in. Like Zeke goes up to like at Michigan the following week and is just crushing people. There was a play in that game where JT Barrett, Zeke was the lead blocker, and Zeke just took out Jabril Peppers and like took him like, I swear, Jabril Peppers like flied like 7 yards in the air. I'm not even joking. And,
he looked like this.
And they just blew the hell out of Michigan in 2015. Harbaugh's first game. I mean, it was close. It was like a close game at halftime, and then. I'll say
like 42-10 or something.
You're right. It was like 42-13 or something. Like, but like you're right. It was like it's a short list of guys that run as violently as Miyan every play.
He runs violently. That's a great way to put it. He runs violently.
But Zeke is up there for sure.
Well, Zeke's all right. Zeke is Zeke. He's amazing.
So this selective reasoning on my part. So I believe Ryan Day what he says about Miyan Williams that it's not serious. I'm a little skeptical about JSN. Now he was very confident, and and this is another thing. So it's important to point out it wasn't just Ryan Day. We talked to Brian Hartline yesterday too. He was also supremely confident, and I'm sitting there. I feel like my BS meter is pretty good. It's not just what they say; it's how they say it. It's as you're looking at them. Both of those men backs seemed honestly confident that Jaxon Smith-Njigba will return for the Buckeyes this year. And I say that, I'm like, they're not bullshitting. Like, I'm watching them. I'm like, okay, they're not bullshitting. But that being said, I'm still skeptical. Like what do you make of the JSN situation?
Well, the last time we played in the Buckeye Beat Writer poker game, you and I each won one of the 2 rounds.
Yeah,
so we should be the ones who can read these guys the best here. I am a little more skeptical than you on whether they're going to come back. I think they're being a little optimistic. I think they're trying to speak what they want into reality a little bit here. But I've been absolutely pessimistic about everything related to JSN since the initial injury. So I'm maybe a little biased towards my initial take still because I thought
I think we agree then. I don't think we disagree. I think you and I agree then.
They believe he's going to play again.
I'm skeptical too. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm not skeptical about what they said about Miyan. That's what I mean about selective reasoning. But I am skeptical about what they said about JSN. I am.
Yeah, they're very confident that their pair of 10s is going to hold up on the river, and I don't think so. So we'll see. JSN is pocket aces, but right now I don't think he's healthy enough, and I think that they brought him back too early. There was no need. If he doesn't play the rest of the year, I'm going to lament that one. Like if OSU does anything short of a national championship, that's the thing we're all going to look back on. Now, every year we don't win it. There's always something, right? And this year's something, if we don't win it, is, God, why did we bring back JSN too early? So we'll see. I'm hoping he can play again. I just don't believe it.
Exactly. If he plays again and he's able to it's one thing if he plays again and then 2 plays in, he gets re-injured. That's not what we're talking about. Is he able to be like Jaxon Smith-Njigba for in the postseason?
He might try again, but he can be the Rose Bowl JSN again or last season regular season JSN again. I hope so, but I mean,
let's hope. All right, let's get you out of here on this. Ohio State favored by 38 on the road against Northwestern this week. Here's the thing about Northwestern under Pat Fitzgerald. As I've talked about, the pattern is Patrick Murphy and I were talking about this on Monday's show. It's like the Pat Fitzgerald pattern usually is good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. They played Ohio State in the 2018 Big Ten championship game. Then in 2019, they were bad. Then they played Ohio State in the 2020 Big Ten championship game. Wow, Northwestern 2 out of 3 years winning the West, even though it's the JV. Still,
but the year in between, they went 3-9.
Right, and then last year they were terrible. And you're thinking, okay, well, here they go again. So 2020, even though it doesn't look good on paper, somehow they're going to be good this year. No, they're worse. This is the worst team that they've had under Pat Fitzgerald. They're 1-7. Their one win is in the Big Ten, which is kind of funny, against Nebraska in Ireland. But anyway, terrible.
In August, it barely counts.
But anyway, so this is a game, seriously. Buckeyes need to take care of business. Rest the starters, get everybody out of there after halftime, get Dallin Hayden out there playing running back. I want to see some Chip Trayanum. I want to see a lot of backups. Northwestern is terrible. Your thoughts on this game on Saturday?
Well, I'm going to read to you some of the recent scores when Ohio State has played Northwestern. So as I have the Stassen historical head-to-head database up here, folks, let me give you some scores here. You take away the 2 Big Ten championship games at Northwestern, 52-3 in 2019. At Northwestern, 2008, 45-10. At Northwestern, 2006, 54-10. In between that time period, 58-7, 48-7.
Don't mention 2004 to me.
I don't want to talk about that game. But by the way, that is the only time Northwestern has beaten Ohio State since 1972.
In my lifetime and in your lifetime, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So right. Northwestern stinks this year. And there's no other way to put it. This is we always joke about how they're going to win the.
Uh-oh. We might have lost Bax. He has Dan Rubin and Dwayne Long's internet connection. I'm kidding, my friends. I'm kidding. Dan's now going to get mad at me that I said that. But we were near the end of the show anyway. If we lost Bax, we lost Bax. But we heard Bax's take on that. He doesn't think Northwestern is very good, and he's right. All right, well, thanks to Bax. You can catch his column every Sunday. It is The Bucket. Thank you very much to the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Sorry we lost him late, but appreciate Bax's knowledge, and appreciate all of you for tuning in. Hope everyone has a great day. Again, thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you, and hope everyone has a great day. Go Bucks.